I well remember the first time that I drove up to East Corinth and finally found Morris Jones Shingle Mill. It was quite an experience. I often think back on it, and I was very impressed at what I saw that day.
Shingles made in Maine, a term that means quality, dependability, and value.
Through the years, I've learned a few things about cedar shingles. And one thing that I have learned, if you're going to produce shingles and sell them, you have got to make a good shingle. It's got to be smooth sawed, it's got to be square, and it's got to be graded correct. If you do those three basic things, you'll have no problem marketing your shingles.
Value begins in the woods when the logger selects the best trees for harvesting. When he cuts for a mill operator, he knows he must deliver quality logs. He looks for trees that are relatively knot and disease-free, cuts to the mill standards, and delivers the load promptly. Morris Jones, shingle mill operator in East Corinth, Maine, knows what makes good shingles.
The shingles that you get out of bad wood is bad shingles. It's as simple as that. What I would like to be able to buy is wood that is 8 inches in diameter, up to whatever, sound wood with good, tight knot. Most times when you tell a guy you'll take some rot, you get all rot.
Traditionally, eastern white cedar has been sawn for shingles in Maine, but at certain times of the year, white pine and other species are used.
I may cut 30% second clear with cedar. With pine, it might run 70% clears and extras, the top grade.
The high value of pine shingles is somewhat offset by its tendency to stain if sawn and bundled in warm weather. Chemical sap stain preventive dips are available.
However, if you were doing that, then you would have to put some advisory on the package that the shingles were dipped, and probably, to be safe, list the chemicals that were involved in the dipping.
The shingle making process begins when specific log lengths called bolts are loaded and brought into the mill. Here they are cut into shingle blocks. Having a sharp slasher saw results in a smooth cut, which becomes the shingle's butt end.
When you start out to make your bolts, you have got to have a saw that is sharp. You've got to have that wood dogged. I mean, it's got to be clamped down onto the bed, and it's got to go through your saw at a slow rate of speed in order to cut a smooth butt. If you don't have a smooth butt to start with, everything from there on is going to be wrong.
Larry Smith, superintendent of a summer colony on the coast of Maine, attests to the importance of quality in cedar shingles.
So when I have been looking around for shingles, I've always been looking to see if the shingle was square, whether it was sawed rough, the general appearance of the shingles, how many knots and so forth.
A good sawyer knows how to mount a block, how to cut and edge shingles, and how to grade them to meet the customer's expectations of quality and consistency. Many shingle mill operators have converted their saws to carbide tips, producing a shingle with a smooth finish.
I think I probably prefer a shingle that has been sawn with a carbide tip because the shingle seems to be smoother. The shingles are easier to stain after they've been applied, and the general overall appearance is much better. I also think perhaps that the smoother shingle sheds water better and probably lasts much longer.
Quality shingles require accurate and consistent grading. Morris Jones uses the following standards for his 5 grades of shingles. The highest grade, which he calls an extra, is clear of defects with no knots and no wane, which is wood missing from a parallel edge. The next grade down, called clear, is defect-free, 6 inches above the butt end, with sound red knots allowed above the 6-inch mark. The third and most commonly used grade, called second clear, allows wane above the 6-inch mark and sound red knots below it. The fourth grade, often called clear wall, which Morris calls X1, also allows wane and sound dark knots above the 6-inch mark and sound red knots below it. The lowest grade at the Jones Mill is what Morris has nicknamed scoots. All his narrow shingles, 3 inches or less, as well as those with dark knots, holes, missing wood, or other serious defects below the 6-inch mark, are placed in this grade.
If you don't have a place to put these narrow shingles, or one shingle that has a hole in the butt, if you don't have a place to put them, then you have a tendency to put them in, try to get them into the other grades.
Producers interested in targeting out-of-state markets can contact the Maine Forest Service for grading requirements. Morris Jones' wife, Judy, supervises all bundling at the Jones Mill. A responsible bundler, also called a buncher, uses this opportunity to grade the shingles one more time to make sure they're being sawn square.
Because where Morris's father did it before, and then Morris, and they keep saying how important it is, and the buncher has the last word, and I want to, every bunch to look good. I want it. After you work so hard to get the shingles made, I want them to look good in the bunch. So I just check them, every one of them, double check them, and try to fit them in. And when you put it in the gauge, if it doesn't fit right up solid on the back end of the gauge or the front end, then you just know it's off.
As a contractor today, I think that most of us are concerned about the increase in the cost of labor, and therefore when you are looking for any product, you want to find the best product that is available. When applying a shingle is top quality, your labor costs are about 1/2 of what they would be if you were trying to apply shingles that have been cut out of square, that were very poor quality, because it takes the worker much longer to plane that shingle, to get it to fit, and then even after all the work he does, they never look quite as nice as a shingle that has been sawed straight to begin with. I found this shingle mill in a small town here in Maine, and after getting acquainted with the owner and so forth, I found out that his product was exceptionally good. And for the past several years, I've been buying a great many shingles from this gentleman. I've struck up a great relationship with him, and I think the both of us are striving to do the best job that we know how, so we kind of work together.
I've had people come in, buy second clears, take them home, put them on their building, and 10 years later they need some more shingles. They remember where they got them, and they know when they come back they're going to get the same shingle they got now that they got 10 years ago. It's as simple as that.
Morris Jones had been sawing shingles all his life until he became ill in the mid-1970s.
I came down with this arthritis, and it laid me up for several years. I couldn't do anything. After a few years, I got feeling somewhat better, and I thought, well, if I had a small shingle mill of my own where I could go out and I could maybe do a little something, keep me occupied. I've worked in a lot of different mills, and you pick out the good parts of each mill, and through the years I used to think, well, if ever I could build my own mill, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that, and eventually I had some good neighbors. They helped me this and that, and I built a mill.
The Jones Mill is one of the most efficient, economical, and profitable shingle mills in Maine. This success is due in large part to its efficient design, where gravity is allowed to do the work as much as possible.
When I started this mill, of course I didn't have a lot of money. In fact, I didn't have any hardly. and I had to build it as cheap as I could. And the side hill was a way to get my wood in without having a $10,000 front end loader. I put a little railroad in, load my wood on a little railroad car, and it just kind of floats in there by itself. One thing about like handling wood or sawing wood, if you can keep it moving forward all the time, don't have it come forward and have to go back for another process.
Morris Jones prefers to purchase 52-inch bolts because they're easier to handle than log-length wood. Clean bolts, free of mud, grit, and stones, avoid premature wear and tear on saw blades. Removing bark before sawing helps preserve the life of saw teeth, but isn't necessary when using carbide tips. Using as much of the wood as possible increases a mill's profitability.
We know we got a defect here, and we got another one here.
One way to get the most out of a block of wood is to examine it for defects, mount it in the carriage, cut it, and turn it to avoid wasting wood and dulling saw blades.
And cut.
The edging process, if not done properly, will result in more waste.
You slide it over, and you just take the bark off. You take, say, 10-inch wood, and if you take an inch off of each side of it and multiply that by 10,000 a day, and you realize the economics of it. I'm sure that there's been mills in the state of Maine went out of business simply because they edged too hard.
Sawyers also use a method called defecting or salvaging when shingles are edged and then cut to improve the grade and to prevent waste.
If you've got a shingle that you can take 2 inches off the side of it and make a building shim and a clear, and say a 5 or a 6-inch clear, that's fine. Go ahead and do it.
The speed and efficiency of any mill sawyer is a key factor in its profitability. Jones's daughter-in-law, Tammy Tilton, excels after only 5 months' experience.
In a month, she was at me to speed the carriage up a little for her. She was getting better every day, and in 2 months, she was cutting 8 bunches an hour. So that's about the limit of the best sawyers I know of. I wouldn't trade her for a home down east.
Good people and good equipment both contribute to efficient shingle production, but equipment is only as good as the maintenance it receives. Morris Jones believes in preventive maintenance to avoid costly breakdowns.
In the summertime, of course, pitch will boil out on this cedar, something terrible. So I've rigged up a tube, runs down to my rest, and I use a gallon can, I guess, gravity feed. And I put chainsaw oil in that can, and when the pitch starts bothering and it's sticking, your shingle won't slide on the rest, then we turn the oil on, and it kind of neutralizes the pitch. Works very good. Simple and good.
While they cost more at first, shingle saws equipped with carbide tips will increase a mill's profit margin in a short period of time.
By going from a steel saw to carbide, you average about 5 square a week more than you would with a steel saw, for the simple reason that you don't have all the time in the grinding of it. You grind it, a steel saw at least once a day versus carbide at once a week. It's as simple as that.
Some mill operators have their own machine shop. Those who don't bring their maintenance problems to people like Morris. The first mill he rebuilt sold immediately at a reasonable profit, demonstrating the need for people with expertise in the repair and upkeep of sawmill equipment. Mill operators who have their own machine shop are able to make their own repairs, and it gives them additional business from other mills. Like any business, a shingle mill requires thorough financial and operational planning.
You've got to have money enough to set a mill up, set it up correctly, and then you've got to have money enough to buy cedar logs, or however you buy it, and produce these shingles, and then market them.
It is more cost-effective to purchase quality machinery.
There's 2 things you've got to have to make shingles. you've got to have good saws, and you've got to have good power.
The best power source for a mill is three-phase power, a high-voltage, low-amperage current for reliable, cost-effective operation of large machinery.
It is more convenient to have power brought in through whatever power company is servicing your area than going through the extra expense of buying a diesel electric generator set and the maintenance of that. That's just another machine to take care of, and possibly down the road another problem that you'll have to deal with.
Another cost the mill operator should budget for is advertising for wood. During those periods when wood may not be readily available, the Maine Forest Service provides free listings in a newsletter that matches woodcutters with processors. Many safety practices at a shingle mill are basic common sense, like standing clear of rolling logs and not smoking in the mill to reduce the danger of sawdust combustion. Other practices are more specific to shingle mill operation. High noise levels inside the mill make it necessary for mill workers to wear some type of hearing protectors. Safety glasses provide eye protection from flying debris, and shingle blocks must be mounted on the carriage so the sawyer's arm is never caught between the block and the saw blade.
You should always reach to the inside of the saw. If you reach to the outside, your hand is going by the edge of the saw is where you could get cut.
It is a mill tradition that when the saw shuts down, the mill is swept clean. This important safety practice keeps mill air cleaner and footing more secure. Preventive maintenance and frequent inspections are critical to mill safety.
I feel I'm responsible for all those people out there, and if I can do one thing to keep somebody from getting hurt, I'm going to do it. But you can't do it and not be out there. You have got to go out there once in a while and look things over. And it's best to do it when there's nobody around. Then you can take your time, and if something is wrong, fix it.
At night, after the mill is shut down and the equipment has had time to cool, Morris checks the wood stove, inspects the saws for sharpness, adjusts the rest on the edge of saw to keep the shingle square, then checks all machinery for hot bearings, a common cause of mill fires. This routine general inspection can prevent tragic accidents like the time Morris discovered a loose shingle saw blade.
It's kind of scary. I have seen them come off, and when they do, they go right out through the mill. They go right out through the mill. They just leave.
For folks who are thinking of setting up a shingle mill, the Maine Bureau of Labor has available on a complimentary basis an examination of the electrical and mechanical hookups in a mill. That, again, it's free. You will be given a written evaluation of the equipment you have and how it's hooked up and whether the inspector thinks any changes should be made to make it safer.
Keep your hand.
A tradition of Maine shingle mills is the involvement of family members in the business and the practice of passing the talent for sawing and grading shingles down through the generations. The Jones Mill is a good example of this tradition.
Of course, my daughter-in-law, she does the sawing. She's the key to the whole thing. And Judy does the bunching. And Judy's sister, of course, helps her.
Also, Judy's brother-in-law is the mill's cut-up man and second sawyer. Besides bunching, Judy does the bookkeeping.
Without Judy here to help me, there is no way. I could never run this alone. I'm just not capable. She's worth her weight in gold.
Because of their commitment to the mill's success, family members function effectively as team players. Judy and Morris Jones are of one mind regarding what leaves their mill. Their agreement and commitment to quality is almost unspoken, but well understood between them. "50% by weight of what goes into a mill leaves it as residue. Trim ends from the bolts, slabs, edgings, and shingle hair. Mill residue can mean additional income or can offset expenses. Bolt wood trim ends called lily pads or cookies, as well as slabs, can be burned to heat the mill during the winter. If bolts are debarked, the bark chips can be sold as mulch, as can the shingle hair created by the sawing process. Carbide-tipped saws create a special kind of shingle hair, much like a ribbon, which has its own market in pet bedding. Morris Jones deals efficiently with his residue. Peter Lammert explains.
At this particular mill, the shingle hair and the edgings and the slabs from each shingle block are ground up in a hammer mill called a hog and blown out into a field where farmers come in and pick it up for bedding for their animals.
Slabs and edgings can be sold as kindling or campwood bundles.
When we first started, we had labels made for each grade of shingles, and we used to put them in. But now we've got the business built up so much that we don't need to advertise, and we just can't keep up with our orders now. In fact, some people that came in brought the little card back that they had, got from these other people that had bought them before.
While quality shingles sell themselves, additional marketing efforts can increase a mill's earnings. Building shims are an excellent market for a mill's lowest grade of shingles.
Shims are found in just about every home. They're used to wedge windows into place, plumb and level, door jambs into place, plumb and level. Almost every home that's made requires the use of about a bundle of shingles just to square things up and make sure they function the way they're supposed to. So this particular mill owner is shooting at that market and will be processing shims in widths just to fit dimension lumber shortly, so that carpenters will find it even handier to grab a handful of building shims and go to work on a house.
One of the most effective on-the-spot marketing tools is the display of neat stacks of full-course bundles.
Now, when you drive into a lumber supply or a building yard, you can see piles of shingles. And if you're looking for a good buy, you should start looking for air spaces between the individual shingles. Or if you have a shingle mill that is bundling their shingles very tightly, you have an immediate sales point in that bundle of shingles because you are getting more linear inches of coverage for your money. The bundle should measure 20 inches across the top, 8 inches thick, and there should be 20 courses of butts on either end.
Larry Smith remembers his first visit to the Jones Mill.
Morris took me out and showed me his product, and he had these shingles all very neatly stacked, and they were put together very tightly and full course stacked, and I guess I'll never forget that. You could tell at one glance that what you would be buying would be a top quality product.
It's very simple. If you want to saw shingles and sell them, that's all you've got to do is saw them well, and grade them well, and you won't have no trouble getting rid of them.
We have used cedar shingles on just about every type of a building, from dog houses, bird houses, regular homes. I've worked on 2 churches where we have done work both on the exterior and on the interior, and at the moment we are restoring an old church where we're doing the interior completely with cedar shingles.
One of Larry Smith's summer colony clients who is sponsoring the church's restoration returned to the Jones Mill to pick up shingles to complete the project. The interior application of shingles offers a wide variety of decorative possibilities. Outside, shingles can be applied to roofs or sidewalls or cut and applied as decorative trim.
I restore quite a few Victorian homes, and sometimes if you have noticed driving past a Victorian house, you have to see diamond-shaped shingles or little half-moon shingles. Well, with a cedar shingle, you can cut those out and you can create that same old design. And it's very interesting and it's rewarding when you finish a house and you've restored it the way that the house was intended to be in the beginning. From time to time I'm asked about the length of time that the cedar shingle would last on the side of a building, on the roof of the building. And I think the answer to that question is how well you take care of the shingle. If you let the shingle age naturally, I think you can sometimes get 40 to 50 years. On the other hand, if you keep the shingle stained or put some type of preservative on it, then I think that the shingle will last a lifetime. And I've seen shingles that are 100 years old and still in pretty good condition.
Proper application will ensure a long life and attractive appearance. Shingles should be applied slightly green with a gap the width of a pencil point between them. This will prevent buckling and allow for expansion and contraction. Galvanized shingle nails should be used to prevent streaking and should be placed 6 inches up from the butt end and 3/4 of an inch in from each side. Variety, durability, beauty, warmth, value. Shingles offer this and more.
Guess perhaps I'm in love with cedar shingles.
If you go into this shingle business, if you don't go in with the idea of making the very best shingle in the state of Maine, then you're in trouble before you even start.
You have to have them perfect. And I want them that way because it's our business and I want it to be good. And I want it all the time, not just here today and something different tomorrow. All the time, consistently. I want it good.
Quality shingles made in Maine.
It's as simple as that.